adjourning this closed session, but I am opening up the yellow agenda, which is the management of Emeryville Services Authority. And please call the roll.
Well,
Somebody?
Sure. Anybody. Okay, Councilmember Donahue.
here.
Councilmember Asher.
Here.
Councilmember Martinez.
Here.
Vice Mayor Davis.
Here.
And Mayor Atkin.
Here.
They're all here.
Now, this MESA agenda has to do with personnel issues. However, there's public comment. Anybody who wishes to speak on items either on the consent calendar or any other item pertaining to MESA could come forward now. Right, is there a motion on the consent calendar?
The consent calendar.
Second.
Nobody wants to pull anything?
No.
Okay. We'll all be counted aye. So that passes unanimously. And there are no other action items, and the MESA meeting is now adjourned. This takes us to our second of 3 agendas. Most of you are here for the for the green agenda, but we're going to the blue agenda because that takes just about as long as the other one did. So I'm calling the successor agency to the Emeryville Redevelopment Agency meeting to order. And please note we're all still here. Again, there's a chance for public comments on anything not either on the consent calendar or public comments on anything related to the successor agency business. See no public comment. Is there?
Consent calendar.
Second.
And again, we'll all be counted aye, and so that passes without exception. There are no action items, and this meeting is now adjourned. And this takes us to, let's see, wait.
I'm sorry, Mayor, I need to catch up.
Okay.
Okay.
So it's 7:17, and I'll call the City Council meeting to order. Please note the agenda's been revised from the first rendition. And please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. It is my distinct pleasure at this point to present this special order of the day. Where are you, Ken?
Oh, wow, he's in cities.
Ken, what'd you say?
He's not in a uniform and he's not in a suit.
No, he's already looking more relaxed.
Yeah.
It's only the second time I've been in long pants since I've left.
Yeah. So we would like to honor you for 40 years of continuous and honorable service to the city and congratulate you on your retirement. We do have a resolution, which I'll read. Resolution of the City Council of the City of Emeryville honoring Chief Kenneth James upon his retirement from the City of Emeryville Police Department after 40 years of continuous and honorable service. Whereas Chief Kenneth James was hired by resolution number 75, get that, 1975, 66 of the City Council into the Police Department on July 1st, 1975, and from that time forward has distinguished himself as a valued city leader. And whereas Chief James became a police officer providing public safety services to the Emeryville community, and whereas Chief James was promoted to sergeant on December 20th, 1983, to captain on July 16th, 1989, and to chief of police on July 1st, 1998, where he served faithfully since then. Whereas Chief James has made numerous contributions to the police department, the Emeryville community as a whole, and to the police profession with exceptional professionalism, leadership, integrity, and honor. And whereas Chief James has been instrumental in transforming the city of Emeryville into a vibrant and prosperous community by ensuring public safety, and resolved that the City Council of the City of Emeryville hereby extends its sincere appreciation to Chief Kenneth James for 40 years of continuous and honorable service to Emeryville and its citizens. And be it further resolved that the City Council of the City of Emeryville wishes Ken many more years of fulfilling retirement in the enjoyment of family, spending time with his 2 grandchildren, traveling, and finally getting a chance to give some time to your golf game. So may I have a motion on this resolution?
Move acceptance of the resolution.
Second.
All right, that's without exception.
By acclamation.
By acclamation. Congratulations. We have a plaque for you.
Wow, that's nice.
It is nice. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Who is that young man?
Yeah.
On July 1, 1975, I never thought I'd be standing here today. And I really hadn't a plan in mind other than to do the best I could and become the best police officer I could be, whether that was in Emeryville or whether it was somewhere else in California law enforcement. Fortunately, it turned out to be all in Emeryville. It was a pleasure, it was an honor, and it was a lot of fun working in this city, working for the citizens of this community, working for the business community, and just providing a level of service to them that really was appreciated, and it came back to the police department many times over, the appreciation. So that made it easy working here. And so at the end of June, I'll walk away from the only full-time job I've ever known. So, thank you very much for this.
Yeah. And I want you to know that I talked to former Assembly Member Nancy Skinner on Sunday. I was over at her house, and your name came up, and she just waxed so eloquent about the assistance that you gave her up in Sacramento. And she said what you were able to do with the Police Chiefs Association statewide just made that work so much easier. So she's very, very thankful.
That's very nice of her to say.
Yeah.
Just tried to do the best we could.
Yeah. So thank you. Thank you for coming back.
Okay.
I'm going to take.
If you have comment.
We have 2 more things that I think should have been special orders of the day. So I'm going to move them up before we get to public comment.
We comment on the item that just happened, the resolution.
They want to comment on Ken.
Yes. You want to speak to the special orders of the day? You can come forward. Okay.
Hi, my name is Jennifer West, resident, and I just wanted to come and honor Chief James. I was on the council for 5 years, and I knew that we had good service in our police department, but what I didn't know was what leadership he provided in terms of gun control across the state. And it was actually soon after I was elected that I was at a cocktail party, and someone said, "Oh, Emeryville, Chief James." And I said, "Really? What is it about Chief James?" And he said, "Well, you don't know?" I was like, "Oh, I didn't know how important his leadership was in terms of statewide and beyond state, actually, and how he stood up, because it's not easy. And in fact, I knew how special he was when I started receiving hundreds of hate mail emails from across the country about how terrible our chief was because he stood up for gun control. And as someone who feels passionately as a pacifist, I was really so honored to have him as our chief. So I just wanted to come down tonight and thank him for his
Thank you,
service.
Jennifer. It's nice to see you again, too.
Thank you so much for honoring Chief Kip Chen. I have known him, I guess, the longest in this town. You know, I knew him before you, and also I regret one thing here is that you really cheated him, because I would have made an award out of stainless steel, and you just give him something really ordinary. I'm protesting that, and I want to remake it out of stainless steel. Thank you.
I'd like to speak briefly about Ken James. I've lived in Emeryville for 35 years. I'm a Green Party member, not a Democrat. Us Greens are not really well known for being police lovers. And I myself, I wouldn't characterize as a police lover. Matter of fact, I've gotten to know virtually every Emeryville cop, and they ask me, I talk with them about this, and they assume that I love police, and I have to tell them, no, I don't love. I just love the Emeryville Police Department. It's a really well-functioning civic governmental agency, and the reason is because of Ken James, in my opinion. That's the primary reason. What Ken has done is something that's extraordinarily difficult, and that is to hire good cops. Everybody that wants a job will give the impression that they're going to be good. So it's extraordinarily difficult, I would think, for a police chief to separate the wheat from the chaff. And if a failure to do that, we wind up with the problem they have in Oakland, which is what I would call a bad cop culture. Now, we don't have that here. Here we have a good cop culture, and I think that's due in no small matter because of the efforts of Chief James, and that's what he's done. That's what he's delivered to us as a culture where the police department is really good and is here to protect us. And if we lose our police department, we're right on the edge of Oakland, and it's with a horrible cop situation there, it could be spiral out of control. I just really value Ken, and I really thank Ken for all the work he's done to provide us with a department that provides protection for us, which is what police are supposed to do, and that's no small thing. And thank you very much, Ken, for all your hard work in that effort. Thank you.
Yeah, I have to say a few words. I've known Ken for a very long time. I remember when I first came here, and he was riding in the car with the dog, and he came over to Silks all the time, and saw him all the time. He's done a very good job. In the heat of a lot of circumstances, he's done most of the time the right thing. Not always, but most of the time. And I think we can be proud of our police department and proud of Ken. And I remember, he and Dennis over at the townhouse having a few. And then when EIA wanted the county to take over the police department, he came to the chamber when it was first started. And that was the first thing we did as a chamber. We passed a resolution to support keeping the Emeryville police in Emeryville and not going to the county. So thank you, Ken, and for all your years of service.
Any other comment on Chief James' retirement or honoring? Okay, so we have a couple of people here who are here for an item 5.5 on the consent calendar, which could have easily gone under special orders of the day. So before we move on to that, I'm going to jump to that particular item. And this is a proclamation for Elder Abuse Month and Elder Abuse Awareness Day. And we have with us tonight Dina Aindow. Did I pronounce that right? Oh, great. And Vanessa Baker. Dina is from the DA's office, and Vanessa's here on behalf of Adult Protective Services. You're going to each be able to take a proclamation home. Let me read it at this point, and if you want to say a few words, you can come up to the podium. This is a City of Emeryville proclamation proclaiming June 2015 as Elder Abuse Awareness Month and June 15th as World Elder Abuse Awareness Day. Whereas the U.S. Census Bureau estimated that as of July 2014, more than 1,000 people 65 years of age and over live in Emeryville. And whereas although the elder population is the largest growing segment in the country, elder abuse is one of the most underreported crimes in the U.S., where it is estimated that only 1 in 14 cases of elder abuse comes to the attention of APS and/or law enforcement agencies. Whereas victims of elder abuse include both men and women of diverse educational, socioeconomic, or ethnic backgrounds who have been victimized by strangers and/or by people they know who may occupy a position of trust, including family members, neighbors, friends, and others with whom the elder interacts. And whereas the Alameda County Social Services Agency, Adult Protective Services, responds to reports from individuals, concerned citizens, social service and health providers, and law enforcement representatives about elders who may be physically or financially abused, neglected, or exploited. And whereas the Alameda County District Attorney's Office, its Elder Protection Unit, and its Victim Witness Division provide a network of services to elders who are in danger of becoming or who have become victims of abuse, and which services include holding community workshops to promote crime prevention awareness, assisting with locating services for elders, working with the Emeryville Police Department, as well as with other professionals, and prosecuting cases of elder abuse and neglect. And whereas the Emeryville Senior Center provides a comprehensive array of services, as well as social and recreational programs to meet the needs of the elder population, thereby enhancing their quality of life and helping them to remain active, healthy, safe, and independent. And whereas the City of Emeryville recognizes that both the awareness of elder abuse and neglect, as well as reporting instances of suspected elder abuse and neglect, will help keep our elders and communities safer. Now, therefore, I, Ruth Atkin, Mayor of the City of Emeryville, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby proclaim June 2015 as Elder Abuse Awareness Month and June 15th specifically as World Elder Abuse Awareness Day in the City of Emeryville, in recognition of elders being valuable members of our city and having the right to live safely and securely in our community, proclaimed the 2nd day of June. So, I want to say, if you're going to come up, while you come up, I just want to say a couple of things, which is that for the public to know, I'm trained as a social worker, and I've had over 30 years in the field of aging, some of which was in Adult Protective Services directly. And I'm always very happy to be able to highlight the issue of elder abuse, and in particular, financial abuse of elders seems to be the crime of the 21st century. As it said, for robbers, why do they rob banks? It's where the money is. And after a lifetime of accumulating money with diminished mental faculties, sometimes seniors become very vulnerable to being taken advantage of, being scammed, and I know of cases personally where people have lost their life savings to due to these scams. And they have a number of different names and a number of different rackets that go around. So I want to thank Dina for you coming to represent the DA's office, because you're going after the bad behavior and trying to stop that. And I also want to let people know that Penal Code 368 is an elder abuse enhancement that can be added to other charges against I see the thumbs up here. And so whenever it's possible to add that as an enhancement on a charge, then I think it's serves its purpose for alerting people to the issue of elder abuse. So thank you both for the work that you do. You don't get thanked enough. APS in particular is in a vulnerable position because you don't have the teeth in the law that, say, Children's Protective Services has. And I am very thankful for those of you who work in the trenches day in and day out to try to make our communities a little bit safer. So,
Oops, sorry, Ruth.
they're identical. One cover. So thank you for your work. You know your stuff. Thank you. Yeah, yes.
Who would like to say a few words?
Come on.
So thank you, Mayor Atkin, members of the Emeryville City Council, and residents of Emeryville. I'm Dina Aindo, Senior Consultant with the Elder Protection Unit of the Alameda County District Attorney's Office. On behalf of Nancy O'Malley, District Attorney of Alameda County, and my colleagues in the Elder Protection Unit, thank you for this proclamation declaring June to be Elder Abuse Awareness Month. You all join all 14 cities and incorporated townships in Alameda County in raising awareness and affirming the importance of keeping seniors safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, Ruth Atkins, City Council members, and residents of Emeryville for acknowledging Adult Protective Services and the District Attorney's Office through this proclamation in recognition of June, which is Elder Abuse Awareness Month, and June 15th, Elder Abuse Awareness Day. My name, again, is Vanessa Baker, and I'm here on behalf of Adult Protective Services to receive this very important proclamation. Together with the DA's office, our dedicated staff collaborate to create a much-needed safety net for vulnerable seniors who are living in our county. We work to investigate and then prosecute those who abuse our seniors and so desperately need our services. Again, thank you to the City of Emeryville for recognizing APS and the DA's office. And also, you will see that I'm wearing a purple ribbon in honor of June, Elder Abuse Awareness Month, and I see that so far everybody is wearing them. I do have some more that Madam Clerk has, and maybe she can provide those to anybody. So I invite you to wear those for June. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks for coming tonight. We are up to public comments. This is for items that are on the consent calendar, including the minimum wage, second reading, and anything else. So I see a lot of labor folks, but I don't have any speaker cards. No one wants to speak on this issue?
You don't have?
Okay. All right. Any other? Okay. Oh, Vanessa, you already said what you wanted to say. And Dina. Okay. All right. You're welcome to stay, but you can go on with your evening, too. We have a long night ahead of us, so thank you. All right.
Mayor Atkin, can we move item 7.3 up and take it first on the agenda?
Let me see what that is.
We have a lot of people that work hard all day and I hate to have them sit through a couple hours here.
It got moved to consent. It got moved to consent. That's the 5 point.
Yeah.
What item was that now?
Well, on my agenda.
Are you talking about the P-bid?
No, I'm talking about the minimum wage.
The minimam wage.
that-
Yeah, that's on,
It's on consent.
it's on consent now.
Then I'd like to pull that off consent.
Okay, let me see what number that is.
0.15.
She wants to pull
Okay.
second reading.
Is there a motion on the rest of the consent calendar? Oh, wait, we have to do city manager's report.
Oh, nothing tonight.
Nothing?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, so the rest of the consent calendar passes. That takes us up to the second reading of the minimum wage ordinance.
I move approval of the second reading.
Second.
Yeah?
I'm thrilled about it.
Any discussion? Anybody want to speak about this?
Call the question.
All right.
That was Davis and
Asher.
Sure.
Let's, for posterity's sake, let's do roll call.
Yes.
Councilmember Asher.
Aye.
Councilmember Donahue.
Aye.
Councilmember Martinez.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Davis.
Aye.
And Mayor Atkin.
Aye. Back at ya. You're welcome to stay or leave, as you so wish, either way. We have no public hearings. We do have an action item. This is the P-bid. Karen, you have a report?
Can we let the people leave?
Yeah, till
Yeah.
it dies down a little. It's hard for me to hear.
It'll take a few minutes anyway.
Have it stand by. It's a little faster than I was expecting.
Yes, thank you. Leave it in the city manager.
Good news.
Yeah.
Every time I'm like, what is he going to do?
Ken James has still.
That's correct.
So our consultant from NBS wasn't able to be with us in person today, but I do have him on standby, and I can dial him up on phone if there's any questions that I can't handle. Today, we're asking the council to take steps to put the proposed citywide property-based business and property and business improvement district for the Emeryville shuttle to approve the preliminary management plan subject to ratification by the parcel owners. And so there are several resolutions in front of you today, and they are to initiate proceedings as well as to take steps to actually start the ballot process. Some of the slides that you will see here next are actually you've seen before, but because not everyone has necessarily seen these slides, didn't necessarily hear the presentation on May 19th, I will go through them quickly, but I wanted to at least have them as part of tonight's council meeting so people who at home can catch up if they haven't seen them before. So what is the citywide property-based Property and Business Improvement District? It is a special assessment district, which means that it is a taxing district in which the assessment is determined by the special benefit received by the assessed property owners. And in the case of the assessment for the Emeryville, the special benefit is seen to vary according to either land use or service accessibility. It is an annual levy collected through the county property tax rolls, and it requires both a Prop 218 ballot process, which means every potentially impacted parcel owner receives a ballot in the mail, and then subsequently the City Council can take action to adopt if the property owners ratify the proposed assessment district after also conducting a public hearing. It is a protest vote by mail-in ballot of the parcel owners, with the ballots weighted according to the proposed assessment levy per parcel. The The enabling legislation for the city to undertake this is found in two places. At the state of California, it is the Property and Business Improvement District Law of 1994, which for some strange reason is in the Streets and Highway Code, and also in the city of Emeryville's Ordinance 15003, which is an ordinance that established the procedures relating to the formation of assessment districts. And one of the things that this ordinance did was to allow the city council to initiate a assessment district, as opposed to it being just by the petition of the assessed property, potentially assessed property owners. Oops. So just to summarize the assessment district, I know you've probably listened to this quite a few times before, is that the assessment levy will be based upon the trips generated by parcel land use, and there are 26 categories, as well as service access. And that's the difference between about 80% of parcels in the city are within a quarter of a mile of a 7-day service route, while the balance, or about 20%, are on a 5-day service route. And so there's a weighted assessment based upon proximity to the 7-day or the 5-day route. The annual assessments can be easy for me to say. The annual assessments can be recalculated for changes in land use and or service access if warranted. So for example, if the 5-day service became a 7-day service, or if a parcel that perhaps was a more low trip type, such as a hotel, became a shopping center, which is a higher trip generation land use. The proposed PBID will include all parcels, including residential, both rental and homeowner, and both single and multifamily parcels. And the TMA will continue to act as the PBID's owner representative. As outlined in the law, it has to be an owner's representative. However, as we'll get to governance, the TMA board's composition bylaws, it's proposed, follows a slightly different path than in the current PBID. The proposed PBID is for a 15-year period that would start in fiscal year 15-16. That would be the fiscal year that the assessment would be placed on the ballot, and that would be for the service year 2016, and it would end in 2029-2030. Though, of course, at that point or earlier, it could always be extended through another similar process. And in the proposed PBID, any annual assessment for any property would be capped at no more than 5% of the previous year. So there's a hard cap. It doesn't mean that it would go up 5%, and in fact, we've had a PBID for the merry-go-round for 15 years, and the average assessment increase has been about 2.7% a year. So in determining the assessment, our assessment engineer went through a process, a much more, I would say, deliberate and more fine-grained process, in that recent PBIDs have been under scrutiny, and there have been some court cases. And so one of the things that's a little different than before is that the general benefit that would be obtained through the service of the merry-go-round cannot be placed on the assessment rolls for the property owners to pay. It has to be paid in another way. And so the assessment engineer, first based upon the annual, the 2016 need for service, in addition, which was modified to include the city's new minimum wage, as well as a 3% cost of living increase over what currently exists. First, as well as repayment to the city for the cost of actually establishing the district. That entire cost was looked at, which is $3,865,400 roughly. And it was determined what was the general benefit of that. And that kind of includes either for the benefit that is accrued by parcels outside of Emeryville, which cannot be assessed, like around the MacArthur-Bart. You know, people who live in Oakland can walk to that station or otherwise use the shuttle, or for pass-through trips. So the assessment engineer determined that about 12.29% of the total operating cost were in that category, either special benefit that could not be assessed because the parcels were not in Emeryville, or were pass-through trips. And so that's roughly about $455,500. And and staff has asked that the city pay that through by the general fund, and later this evening you'll be looking at a mid-cycle budget adjustment, and that does include funding for this if it, in fact, the PBID passed. This would be the general benefit portion. So the assessment itself would raise for 2015-16 about close to $3,410,000. Sorry, $3,410,000. So the way that the assessments were done per parcel was to look at the special benefit that was accrued by each parcel, and the single-family house was considered kind of the control, and the ITE manual for chip generation that is commonly used for example, I know that the city has used it for development fees, for traffic impact fees, that was used to determine the trip generation by land use. And then what was added to that was whether a parcel was on a 7-day route or a 5-day route. And any common areas, for example, in HOAs, roads, easements, parking lots, and parking garages and gas stations and auto repair shops were excluded. This was because either these are square footage that don't in themselves generate parcels, they're part of the land use that does generate those trips, or in the case of a gas station or auto repair, you're not going to use a service to go to a gas station to gas up your car. So these are ones that there's no special benefit because the purpose of going to that parcel is an auto-related trip. So here are some of the, to give you a sense of the proposed assessments by by the different land use classifications, and I've highlighted some of the most common. The management plan itself, which is attached to the agenda item, and I have a copy here, will include the specific assessment for each parcel in the city, and that will also be included in the ballot that is provided to every parcel owner. So you can determine exactly what it is that you would pay under the proposed assessment district. So just to hit some highlights, for a single-family residential that receive 7-day service, it would be $171.52 per year. And for a single-family resident that is on a 5-day route, it would be $122.47 per year. So these are both per year cost. For an office, as on a 1,000 is per 1,000 square feet, and so an office on a 7-day route would be just under $199, and on a 5-day route it would be a little over $142. General retail shopping per 1,000 square foot, and again these are all annual cost, would be a little over $770 per 1,000 square foot, and on a 5-day route, a little less than $550 per square foot. Light industrial would be $125.21 per 1,000 square foot, and on a 5-day route, a bit over $89 per square foot. And for multifamily residential, which is the lion's share of the residents in this city, if you were on a 5-day route, it would be about $111.50 per year, and per year, and on a 5-day route, about $79.60 per year. And then the last thing I showed was warehouse, which would either be $63.46 for the 7-day route or $45.31. And again, this is all included in the management plan like this to give you the basic categories, but there is also a attachment which gives the assessment for every parcel, including city parcels. And by the way, in addition to the roughly $455,000 that the city would be covering through the general fund per special benefit, the city also will be paying on its parcels. Public agencies and nonprofits are not exempt. And the city's parcels, which includes the marina, as well as our square footage, is roughly $100,000 per year. So this gives you a bit of a breakdown of the percentage that each kind of large type of land use would be paying. I kind of collapsed the categories. So you see that previously, I would say the current P-bid, retail, that it was about 90% commercial and 10% residential, but then not all residential parcels paid in. Only rental properties or a few condominiums that had conditions of approval that paid for the service. Under the current P-bid, about 80% of the assessment will be paid by commercial properties, including retail, office, warehouse, industrial, and about 21% would be residential, be paid for it. And just as a bit of information, while this is based upon trip generation, not use, residents now are about a third of the riders that use the Emeryville. So if you look at it that way, the difference is still that the use is very heavily residential. So governance. So because I know that this has come up a lot in the community about what the governance structure would be and a concern of how the governance would be done, I actually put here the exact words that are in the management plan that the parcel owners would vote on, and I did in blue the highlights. Essentially, as according to the state law, there has to be an owner's representative, essentially someone who's representing the owners who are paying into the district, and that is the TMA, which is a nonprofit organization whose membership consists of parcel owners that are assessed under the district, in which case this is every parcel in the city, and that the TMA would be governed by a board of directors whose membership is designed to equitably represent all stakeholders in areas of the city with specific provisions for representing residential parcel owners as well as commercial industrial parcel owners. And the way that this would be done is that the TMA's board's composition and TMA bylaws shall be ratified by a general membership meeting of the TMA, which is all the parcel owners who are invited to come to this meeting, and then incorporated in the city owner representative agreement between the city and the TMA. Because the city essentially holds the money for the service, because the county, once they put the assessment on the property roll, they cut the check to the city, which puts it in a designated fund that could only be used for the service of the Emeryville, which is the purpose of this assessment district. And then the city turns around and, according to state law, shall contract with the owner's representative to actually administer the services under the district. So a little bit different than currently, where the TMA board composition and the bylaws were just ratified by the general membership. This management plan says that while the TMA boards and composition shall be ratified by the general membership, that those decisions must be incorporated into the contract between the TMA and the city. This provides an added level, let's say, of scrutiny for whatever the board composition and the bylaws are. The city, of course, does not have to agree to incorporate what's presented to them in the contract, and this really is an added layer to make sure that no particular stakeholder group in the assessment district can essentially dominate either the composition or the bylaws. The city will kind of have final say in the sense of being able to say we will not include that as part of the contract, and so would kind of then return it to the general membership to come up with something that was equitable. And of course, this contract is something that is that would be approved by the city council at a city council meeting. So if there were any stakeholders, any property owners that did not agree with what the general membership ratified, they would have the opportunity to make those opinions known to the city council. So it is an added level of scrutiny. And that would also include any amendments that would be made to the board composition or the bylaws. So in In addition to that, the city also would be reviewing any adjustments to service to determine if there was a PBIT impact. So, for example, if the TMA wished to extend service to unserved areas, there's a very few areas of the city that are not served, kind of the far northern part of the Triangle neighborhood. Because those parcels are currently unserved, that would require a change to the assessment district and the determination of general versus special benefit. So the city would have a role in having to review and approve that. But
wait, can you repeat that again? Having to approve what?
Only those changes to service that would provide, that would essentially make, you don't get assessed if you're unserved. So any decision that would essentially extend service to areas that are not served would be brought to the council, to the city. But those adjustments that are, I would say, the bread and butter adjustments, stops, and those kinds of things, those are already covered by the management plan and says that there may be slight readjustments based upon, for example, if a 5-day route went to a 7-day route. Those parcels had a chance to vote on that in the management plan, so that wouldn't come. So it's only a very small number of decisions. Yes.
But what if someone decided, what if they decided to eliminate routes and then they said, well, you don't have to pay anything? And
well, that would be something that was not part of the management plan, so that couldn't be done.
It couldn't be done that way.
That would be the kind of thing the city would say, no, you can't do that unless essentially you go back out to the parcel owners and amend the management plan.
All right. Okay, thank you.
Right. And then also the city does approve the TMA budget every year, and based upon the recommendation of the TMA, sets the assessment levy every year. So there is that added role for the city as well. So just to kind of tell you where we are with the adoption schedule, there has been, as you know, a community process. This, actually, if I thought about it, we have been talking about long-term strategies for funding the Emeryville for almost 2 years at this point, including having the Emeryville task force that was made up of both residents and businesses in the city to determine, that came to the conclusion that a PBIT assessment district should continue to be the primary source of funding for the Emeryville. Of course, the city will be looking for grants, particularly for capital investments, buses, and the bus yard that we will need. And city has already had discussions with the Alameda County Transportation Commission around those possibilities. And so that really started 2 years ago. And there have been several times, as you know, that this has come back to the City Council. But I would say the more recent discussion started March 17th with the first reading of the local ordinance to set the guidelines by which an assessment district would go forward. There was a second reading on April 7th. The effective date of that new ordinance was May 7th. There was a City Council study session on May 19th. And today we're asking for the city to approve the draft management, the final draft management plan that would go out, that would be the basis upon the vote that would take place, and to initiate proceedings to put it on the ballot. If the council agrees to do so, then the ballots would be mailed by June 19th. And property owners have 45 days to submit those ballots, and then they would be counted on August 4th. If the vote is an affirmative vote, then the city would hold a public hearing. Of course, we'll notice that hearing in advance, and in fact, one of the things that you're doing today is setting that public hearing for August 4th. And based upon the outcome of the ratification by the property owners and the public hearing, then the City Council, if they choose, may adopt the PBID. If the council did that, then the assessment would be placed on the property rolls by the county in August 10th for the fiscal 15-16 fiscal year. So any questions or comments?
Karen, if this PBID is passed and the assessments are placed on the roll, does that mean that the assessments that are already on the roll for 15-16 there would be double payments, or would they replace
No, this would
those payments?
replace, this
I
would
think we
replace.
have to make that very clear. I don't find it in the staff report, but it's something that it should be clear. If this PBID places, no one's going to be paying double.
No one will be paying double, and we will look to make sure that that is clarified, that's very clear in the management plan as well. But yes, there is no intention that you're
I
playing
think
double.
it's especially important that these very large property owners that are into tens of thousands of dollars understand that this is a replacement, it's not a doubling up.
We will make sure that that is the case.
Diane?
In terms of the general membership being able to meet and weigh in on board composition, I'm just wondering about if you could speak to the nature of the meeting where that ratification would take place, and how would those votes be weighted the same way that the ballots would be weighted?
Under the current bylaws, it's one parcel, one vote.
Okay.
For the general membership. I think the biggest protection is that board composition bylaws would be incorporated in the contract between the TMA and the city.
Right.
So so obviously there is every reason to facilitate an equitable, or for the stakeholders to kind of come to some agreement around what is equitable.
Right.
Because if any one group decided that it wasn't and made that case known, then I suspect that the council would say go back and try again. It's also true that most of, pretty much for the first year, 2016, fiscal year 15-16, most of the major decisions have already been made. The budget is already adopted, the assessment's already, been levied, and so, there's a little, what will happen in the next year has pretty much already been determined, because that is what is in the management plan, what happens for 2016.
Karen, what kind of a process is there during this vote? I'm not anticipating, but I'm contemplating that on the one hand, we have these very, very large property owners that have big, a lot of votes. And then we have individual properties. Is there a mechanism for proxies? Say a whole group of individual homeowners got together and they wanted to do something. Could they, is there an allowance for proxies?
No.
Now, this is what they do in the homeowners association. If they're voting for the board of directors,
I believe
they allow
under
proxies.
the current bylaws there may be, but again, what the bylaws going forward would be, that is still to be determined. So
I think that's something we really have to look at, because individual property owners, one-on-one against the big guys, that doesn't work. But if they are allowed to collect proxies and get a number of votes, it evens it out. It's just a process.
It is right now, the bylaws for the general membership, it is one vote per parcel, so it's not weighted according to the assessment as it is for the vote for the PBID itself. And so quite frankly, it's more likely that residents will come to a general membership meeting than a lot of businesses. So from that point of view, I think it's more, I think, going forward, whether or not the one parcel, one vote is something that the general membership and the council thinks is the way to handle the general membership. Also, the way the board functions is right now, it's one board, it's one vote per board member. You don't get additional votes being on the board if you're a large parcel owner versus being a small parcel owner.
Yeah.
And that's the way it is now. And again, this would be something that the general membership would weigh in on.
If we were going to consider something like a senior rebate, at what point would we do something like that?
That would be a city program. Special assessment districts, and maybe I'll turn to my city attorney, but special assessment districts, unlike parcel taxes, do not have senior exemptions because the special benefit is received whether or not you're a senior or not.
Yeah.
However, and so it would be placed on the tax roll, and the senior would have to pay. However, the city can separately from that process decide to have a rebate program. And if that is something that the City Council is interested in and would so direct staff, we would come up with a program and bring it to council for consideration at a later date. And maybe I don't know if our senior city attorney, or did I explain it correctly?
But Karen, that would have to come out of the general fund, right?
Yes, it would.
Yeah, it wouldn't come out of the revenues for the go-round.
No, it could not, because those are special assessment monies.
Right.
We did look into about how much we thought that would cost, because we had heard from the community that that was a concern and thought that there might be a council member who would raise that. So we think it's going to be about $20,000 to $40,000, depending on how many seniors actually request that exemption. And that's based upon what we know of the number of seniors that are receiving exemptions from the school district parcel.
Right.
And we would assume that probably the program that we would bring to you would follow similar guidelines, just so, it's simple for people to not have one way for one thing and one thing for another thing.
I'd be interested in.
I would support that too.
Karen, at what point in time does the city consider this kind of program? Is this something that we can put on the ballot to say that the city either has this program or considered the program, or that is not that's a no-no?
No, I would highly recommend against that.
Okay, Michael.
If there are no more questions for Karen, I'll open it up for public comment.
Very good job, Karen.
Thanks, Karen.
Gee, it seems so lonely in here after the minimum wage. Well, I must say I have to give credit to both council members, Ron Freund from Western Emeryville. Good evening, everybody. I think Karen and council members addressed a lot of the issues that I and others have raised in the past. I still am not totally clear, so let me just get these out and see if we can clarify them. So, do I request you to ask staff to respond to questions?
Just ask your question.
All right. Quickly. All right. So I'm not clear on the 7-day and 5-day service. Who decides that, which then in turn would decide what the assessment would be for each multi-dwelling unit? Is that correct? So that's one question. Is that clear? Okay. And does that come after we have voted, or will it come before, so we know what we're voting on? Okay. Secondly, the senior rebate that two of you at least, and I think three, can you go ahead and instruct staff to look at preparing something like that tonight? So that's two. Thirdly, on the governance issue, there was one area that we didn't speak to, and I still am not clear on, and that is the disestablishment of the PBID. On the one hand, I saw the engineer's report say there are many different conditions under which it would be done, and the only one that you would have total leeway under would require a supermajority, which in other words would be 4/5. So I'm not clear. Is that a requirement under PBIDs, or can you simply say that the disestablishment will be by majority? So
I can handle.
Does that?
Okay. Karen, are you prepared to answer those questions?
Yes. The 7 versus 5-day route question is based upon a parcel being within 1/4 of a mile of a stop there, and they actually looked at road access. So it's not like a radius in which, you were across the railroad track, so maybe you were within 1/4 of a mile, but you couldn't get to that stop. So they actually looked at, how would you actually access that stop? And so, about 80% of the parcels in the city are on a 7-day route, and I would say the 5-day route is essentially the Hollis route. And a little background is, that is a route that there isn't a lot of, retail, and there's not a lot of parcels when the route was done that are 7-day businesses. So that was done as a 5-day route, and then the 7-day route was because at the time, there were a lot of parcels that were interested in 7 days.
So it's not an either or, it's determined by what the parcel is. So we can assume we'll be on the 7-day route at the Watergate area.
And you can look up your specific parcel to know exactly it is, but yes, it's pretty much the railroad tracks in west, I would say, is a 7-day route, and then the Hollis is the 5-day route. In terms of the rebate, I think I counted to 3. So the staff will bring that program back for the council to be able to implement, assuming that the PBID is established. In terms of the disestablishment, I believe, and the city attorney can weigh in, that is part of the city's local ordinance that requires that any assessment district, for it to be disestablished by the council kind of at will, requires a supermajority.
Yeah, I would just add, state law does provide for disestablishment proceedings, but it's limited in certain instances like malfeasance, whereas under our code, the council with supermajority vote has the ability to disestablish it for really any reason. But in either case, you can't disestablish if there are sort of outstanding contractual issues that are in need of the assessment, but that's usually a provision that would come into play if the assessment district was also anticipating issuance of bonds, and the bonds had a several-year term to repay, but we're not issuing bonds, so I don't necessarily see that as an issue for this one.
It's more likely it would be because I know that there's a lot of interest in a regional transportation system, the EBOT, the Emeryville, Berkeley, Oakland transit system, and if that was established and there was regional funding behind it, then the PBID may not be, how that's funded, and so you wouldn't need to have the PBID because you would have another funding source.
Great. Well, I appreciate very much the steps you're taking.
Any other public comment? Come on up.
I just wanted to point out very briefly here, Mr. Freund, the previous speaker, there was no clock on him. Interesting. There was no clock.
I'm so quick.
Okay. Well, he spoke over 3 minutes. No clock. I'm not complaining, just noting no clock on Mr. Freund. Mr. Freund is a popular person, a nice man. I also note here that the Brown Act was not violated when he asked some clarifying questions and he received some answers from the council and from the staff. That's not a Brown Act violation. That's all good, wonderful. Information was put out there for the public edification, and that's all good. So just remember, citizens may ask questions, and the council and the staff may answer simple questions with clarifying questions. That's legal. Just so in the future, just keep this in mind. What happened just this moment ago, that was fine. It's legal. Just keep it in mind, please. However, I would like to request that the clock be applied fairly and equitably to all people, even unpopular people.
I apologize. It's rather hard sometimes for me to keep track of the time when I'm also the staff person who's providing the agenda item.
Let's try to make sure that everyone's treated fairly and equitably here. That's all I'm requesting. Thank you very much.
Betsy Cooley, resident. So I guess I don't really understand I thought I understood it because I've been following this for several years. I've been following this for several years, and I thought I understood the one vote per $1. But then the idea that the one vote per parcel, it's sort of like either way. If it's one vote per dollar, for example, Watergate, just as an example, because it's a really large development with 1,249 units, and so that's about 1,249. Well, anyway, if you multiply that by 100, whatever that comes out to, that's less than about half of what Wareham, which is one parcel, has, and so we'd have to get absolutely everybody in Watergate would have to vote one way to counteract what half a vote of Wareham would do. And so that to me doesn't seem, that seems a little bit uneven, but also the reverse seems really a little bit strange to me, the one parcel. I mean, the fact that my vote would have the same weight as Wareham doesn't sound really reasonable to me either. So I don't really understand that. And so one of the things that I liked about the current board composition, although it doesn't currently have, they don't currently have a residential person on board. But if you had one or two, some people would like to see two residential things. that I could see, but having it all set out so that everybody, my vote is equal to a large company's vote, I don't really understand how that's going to work. And the other thing I don't understand is when you talk about saying that the membership will vote on possible changes to the bylaws, which could include what sorts of seats are on the board. And because the last vote that took place, that's what it was about. It was about changing the residential seat so that it could be either resident or business. That's always going to be the larger majority of the large companies. They're always going to have the majority. So presumably they would not eliminate the residential. But when that vote took place, there were only either 16 or 18 votes out of all the people assessed, because nobody votes on those things. They don't participate. And so that makes me a little bit uncomfortable to think that a very small group of people who are interested and participate, and that includes me. I do participate, and so I do have opinions about these things, but I'd like to feel that there's some sort of fairness to the way it all works out. And I'm not saying that I have the solution. I'm just saying that I think that these are things that need to be taken into consideration.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Mr. Carpio?
It's a government.
Sounds like this political vote is absolutism to me. Next item I want to bring, and I talked already last time, is that the merry-go-round buses system doesn't seem to be green at all. I mean, there is a power demonstration that has been made with a system, not yet, but that has been designed and just need to be implemented, in which the buses are powered by battery and have solar cell not only on a bus, but where the bus is stop. So when the bus stop, he can get a quick recharge while people load and unload, and that will save tremendous amount of money, because each person on average 175 pounds will use only 50 watts per mile, and so this is way over at the efficiency of any diesel engine. You see, and you have to say also that diesel engine will use also, regardless if it's loaded or not, while with the battery is proportional to the weight. And also, we have lots of sunny day. We have about, I want to mention that, you know, there is a competition that are made in which vehicles travel over 65 miles an hour for an average of 3,000 miles without on solar cell and battery, no auxiliary power, while these buses could have a small auxiliary unit to recharge the battery when the sun is not shining enough or when it's overcast. So you should take this into consideration. This is very important, the economics of it. And that will, if the economics is advantageous, then people will be more sympathetic to the bus, because they see that lots of people use it free and don't pay nothing, like myself.
Ken?
Well, we haven't seen the engineer's report, so I don't know if it would be, well, I haven't seen it. Been asking for it for a long time. You were supposed to let us know when it came in, so we don't have that.
It's in the packet.
Okay, well, it wasn't in the packet I saw. You know, I think this whole assessment could be open to challenge, but the thing about it is that it's not fair. I mean, the board isn't fair. I mean, you should know what the board composition is going to be before you vote on this. I mean, saying that we're going to do it later, that's not right. And we haven't seen the engineer's report. I don't know when it was ready. You know, trying to get documents from the city clerk's office, we got this big of ridership information, and each page has no information on it at all. Paid $28 for it. You know, we've been wanting to find out whether this should be a public system or a private system. There's millions of dollars of state cap and trade money coming down for transit, and do we know whether we're eligible or not? Why should we move forward with this without taking a look at those options? I mean, all we've ever asked is to make this fair and to look at the options. We've never had any opportunity to look at any other options. I guess it doesn't matter. So you want to assess residents. Well, none of the residents have any direct notice that they're going to be assessed. people at 1500 Park, whatever other residents you want to assess, they don't know anything about it. Not one thing about it. You've had public meetings which are poorly attended. Don't you think those residents deserve the opportunity to know about it? But you know why they don't know about it? Because the vote's already in the bag. Those 4 corporate people on that board control that vote, and that's all there is to it. There's never been any justice. The assessments haven't been fair. All these years, you have one part of town with 5-day service, the other part with 7-day. Now you're going to address it, but what about all the years that it hasn't been fair? Everything's ignored. The board is in place. You know, Ware has been in control for a long time. I think it's time for that to stop. So, I mean, this says right here that only special benefits can be assessed, and the special benefit is those conferred on the property owners, which is not conferred on everybody in this district in general. And that's not what's happening here. Watergate has express service. Isn't that a special benefit? I don't know. I think you guys will make a mistake if you go forward with this tonight. I think you could wait. It wouldn't hurt. You got a whole another year before this would have to be done. And rather than, I can't say it's going to be challenged, but it's possible. And I think you should wait. Thank you.
I would like just to say is that we sent a postcard to every parcel in town about the last study session.
Right. We got it.
Did that say they were going to be assessed?
Well,
So,
obviously every property owner will get a ballot to vote on the assessment district.
Can you silence your phone? Is there any other public comment on this? All right, well, there's a couple of resolutions, 7.1.1, 7.1.2, pertaining to this.
Oops, sorry.
Mayor, I'd like to just once again thank Karen and the rest of the staff who've worked on this. This is a very complex issue. We are absolutely appropriate in moving ahead in a timely fashion. This service is critical to this community, and I really appreciate the work that's been done, and I would move the first resolution.
I'll second.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Move the second resolution.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Both passed unanimously. This takes us to 7.2, the mid-cycle review with a 2-year budget. And Maria? You've been busy.
It's been a fun time in finance. Favorite time of year. See, I have a very short presentation for you today. Let's see. Can't see where this little thing is. Alrighty, so Mayor Atkin, members of the council, I'm Maria Oberg, I'm the finance director, and we have before you the mid-cycle budget review. Finance staff has sat down with every department in the city as well as with the city manager's office and looked at where we are in the first year of the 2-year operating budget and where we think we're going to be next year. As you know, we approved the current 2-year budget in June 2014, and of course there's always stuff that happens during the first year. So if we just look at a very brief summary of the general fund adjustments, in the 15 budget cycle we had budgeted about net revenue of about $177,000. With the changes that have happened in revenue, for instance, our building permit fees have come in a lot higher than we budgeted. We also have the property transfer tax in place, which was not part of our original 2-year budget. We are looking at coming in at projected fiscal 15 year-end results of about $2.6 million in net revenue. Look to fiscal 16, we budgeted net revenue of about $50,000, and with the changes, again, it's fees and permits from building activity and the property transfer tax. We're looking at net budgeted for the amended budget of $131,000. Here's a very quick summary of the changes we're seeing to the general fund revenues. Again, the most significant one, of course, is real property transfer tax, but also transient occupancy tax keep increasing, and that is consistent with what other cities in the Bay Area are seeing, so we're not overly optimistic here. general fund expenditure adjustments, very minor in 2015. A lot of the decreases in expenditures you see there is a shifting of budget dollars to 2016. In 2016, we have some increases related to the minimum wage ordinance, both administration and also what we're paying our part-time employees, as well as with increased permit activity, there's an increased cost for those contracts that are associated with that. Back in December, when we took the CAFR to you for approval, we promised we would bring something back about the unassigned 2014 general fund balances. They were about $12 million, and we have a council-directed policy saying that a minimum of 25% of budgeted expenditures must be held in reserve, with a goal of bringing it up to 50%, including the Economic Uncertainty Fund, and then long-term, we should come up with something to make them even bigger. In this case, since we are so close to closing out fiscal 15, our recommendation is that we fill the reserve goal up to 50%, which would leave you an available unassigned fund balance of about $1.8 million. And we have some suggestions for that. We suggest that we set aside $500,000 for the increased PBID expenditures for fiscal 16 related to Karen's prior presentation. We are also recommending that we give a one-time cash infusion to the Child Center. I know they are currently working with their consultant to come up with a financing plan, and I know Pedro from Community Services will be here in a couple of weeks to tell you the status of the Child Care Center. But for now, we think a one-time funding of that would be beneficial. So that said, that leaves a little bit of extra money, so we will be over 50% in reserves. But again, in the fall of this year, 2015, when we bring the CAFR to you, we will come up with a long-term plan for you with more of a long-term, like 5-year forecast with suggestions and options for you to use these unassigned fund balances. There are...
I thought we were going to weigh in on that $700,000 tonight.
Yeah, you can if you wish.
Okay. You certainly can.
You absolutely can. My recommendation is not necessarily yours. Also wanted to bring back a summary of the unfunded liabilities. Those of you who were on council in December remember this from the CAFR discussion. This is just a status report based on our actuarial valuations of our retirement and our other post-employment benefits, the retiree medical benefits that we have. I would caution you to not get too hung up in these ginormous numbers of the unfunded liability. This is a long-term liability. It's not something that's coming due within a year. It's a long-term liability, and therefore it's not fully funded because, again, it's an investment account. The funding status you see, anything in the 80 to 90% is actually quite good. You do not want to fully fund your unfunded liabilities on the retirement and OPEB side. The OPEB side, we're a little lower. We're still fairly good. This is a relatively new requirement, and compared to other cities, we are actually doing quite well. In addition, we have some funds set aside that are not shown in these valuation reports because they are funds that we hold in-house. So there is funds set aside in the budget to help offset some of these unfunded liabilities.
And just if I may on that note, you'll see at the bottom there, just as an example, your fire unfunded liability for the retiree health care of $1.6 million. As an example, we have set aside all of that into a side fund at this point. So that's something that when they bring the 5-year forecast back with some recommendations, that's something I would recommend that you go ahead and move that into something like a CalPERS trust fund. So then you would be 100% funded or 90-something% funded for the fire, just as an example.
That is all I had.
Maria, do you know if we're going to be subject to the healthcare Cadillac tax in a couple of years? Ian, I'm sure you know about this.
Yeah. The Cadillac tax, we receive our health care from CalPERS, so we're dealing with a very large agency that doesn't have a lot of agility. It's sort of the big player in healthcare, and that is something that they'll be addressing at that level and something we can bring back information on. So we haven't made that determination whether we're going to be subject to that Cadillac tax in terms of our employees at this time.
Don't know.
Mayor,
We'll bring it.
Would it be possible if we could hear from Bill Reuter as a representative of the Finance Committee? These are citizens that have taken their time to go over these figures in this budget, and this community involvement is very important to us. If you could give
Bill,
us
you want to talk?
your comments.
You were kind of set up.
Well, we had a chance, of course, to look at this at the last meeting of the Finance Advisory Committee, and on balance, I thought it looked pretty good. Nor I share your constant and continuous concern about unfunded liabilities. I was very pleased to see that that's all taken very seriously and that the staff has got their eye on that. I'm also pleased to see that our reserve funds are in good shape, and that was helpful. The adjustments, these midterm adjustments, I thought they were reasonable based on the ebb and flow of such things as the transfer occupancy tax. So from my point of view, when I walked away from the meeting, and I think this is shared by other members of the committee, we endorse this midterm adjustment. Things look pretty good. The ship's afloat. Hope it stays that way.
Good to hear from the citizens.
Is there any public comment?
Well, I have some questions.
Okay.
This is a theoretical question. Aiming at higher and higher reserves seems great from a security point of view. We never know what major catastrophe could happen, but is there a downside to having high reserves? And what would you say that downside, or some of those downsides, are?
Well, it depends again, right? But yes, there is a downside. It's a little bit like fully funding your retirement benefits, for instance. Once you've done that, you've committed those funds and they can't be used for anything else. If you fully fund your reserves, or you just divert all your money to reserves, you don't have money for capital projects or even staff salaries or any of these other programs that you would want to do. And there's a fine balance.
And if I may, also on the reserve, our target percentage here is 50%, and I will be honest with you, when I first got here, I thought 50%. But when you're looking at it in terms of absolute dollar terms, it's not that much money. I mean, if you had a catastrophic event, I mean, what is it? You're at just over $15 million that we've set aside. It's not, you know, in terms of order of magnitude, that much money. It's a large percentage, but it's just because of the size of our budget. So I think it's right on.
Okay.
Any other questions from council?
Comment.
Yeah.
I just want to point out one of the additions that is on the table this evening, and that's crossing guards for Annie Yates Elementary School. And this is something that the parents at Annie Yates, along with the principal, really want, and I'm glad to see that it's in this proposal and that the city is helping with this. Municipalities all around us have crossing guards, and Annie Yates being bound by Adeline and San Pablo, and those people being so little, it's really important that we make sure they're safe on their way to school in the morning. So I'm grateful to see this on there.
Any other comments?
My only comment on the crossing guards is I thought the sentence that said the school district would start picking up the tab in 2 years.
In 2 years.
Was a little misleading.
Well, it's part of their conditions of approval for the ECCL.
I'm thinking about their bank account.
Well, yes, we know that, but
yeah. I have a comment also around OPEB, and I think I might be in a minority position here on the council, but at one point our OPEB liability was $10 million, and at one point in time Emeryville had reduced it by 70% down to about $3 million. And then now I understand the OPEB liability has started to creep up again. It might be more like $4 or $5 million. So it seems to me that I'm not in favor of kicking the can down the road, and I've been a minority position on that as well.
You have my support on that. You know that.
And when we've had excesses and decide where to put them, more has gone into the Economic Uncertainty Fund than I've been comfortable with relative to what's gone into OPEB. So the OPEB problem just seems to go up exponentially over time, and that if we nip it at the lower down earlier on, then the problems aren't going to grow quite as large. So I just want to let you know that this one council member wants to be as aggressive as possible about OPEB because it's a long-term liability that just grows exponentially.
Make that 2 council members.
So let's see if this is
it's an action
item here. Let's see.
I'd move, what are the adjustments that we're making? Are we accepting the staff recommendation?
Yeah, I haven't seen anything else about that. I want to note, though, that we're going to need to increase our own city staffing by one FTE to administer the new minimum wage. So we're having to spend more money about this too, as well as deal with salary adjustments of existing personnel. So I think that's one thing to note. The salary adjustments are about $80,000 and then $125,000 on an ongoing basis to administer the minimum wage. And you talked about the crossing guards.
Yes.
I think that's a nice collaboration and a good thing to do, and has a pretty low price tag on it, all things considered. Yeah. And so is there a motion on the resolution to adopt the mid-year adjustments?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so that passes unanimously. Thank you so much, Maria, for your work, and for everybody else who played a role. Ian, I'm sure.
Michelle.
I'm sorry,
Mayor,
7.21
there was a second resolution regarding appropriations.
Move the staff recommendation on the appropriation.
Second.
So we have money.
Ooh, feedback. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, that also passes unanimously. That's, and then 7.2.2 is the resolution for the CIP. Is there a motion on that?
I thought you just did that.
So moved.
No, we just did that.
Oh,
that was just.
No,
okay.
I thought we did.
All right. Yeah, we just have
one.
Yes. Sorry. 7.2.1 and 7.2.2. Okay, this takes us to department heads. Planning Director, Charlie.
Yes,
You've been busy.
we have been pretty busy. Planning Commission met last Thursday. They only had 2 items on their agenda, but they were both big weighty items. They had a study session on the proposed regulations, incentives, and guidelines for multi-unit residential development. Of course, this was a follow-up to the joint meeting that you had with the Commission on May 2nd. They had some additional thoughts on the matters, and I think it's moving along, it's evolving, and we'll be bringing it back to you for another study session at this point tentatively scheduled for your September 1st meeting. And then they held a public hearing and approved the final development plan for Parcel C of the Marketplace redevelopment project. That is the grocery store and 66 units of residential with parking above the grocery store. On your dais in front of you, you should have a fact sheet that is a summary of the Commission's approval of that item. Just for your information, it gives the unit breakdown and some of the key comments that the Planning Commission had. So that concludes my report, and I'd be happy to respond to any questions you may have. Just let me note that that second item, the FDP, is appealable to the City Council within 15 days, which I believe would be by a week from this coming Friday. And if the Council wishes to consider calling it up for review yourselves, this would be the time to do that.
Yeah, Jack?
I just have a quick comment. I want to thank staff and Charlie for putting together this fact sheet for me. The Planning Commission often comes just a couple of days before we meet here as a city council, and just to have this salient information, especially around the issues that we've been talking about so much, is really useful, especially the unit mix and the comments about family-friendly housing. So thank you for putting this together.
And just to note, we do have some of the other final development plans for the Marketplace project coming up at the Commission in the next couple of months, and I'll be providing a similar fact sheet for you about each of them after the Commission takes action.
Thank you, Charlie.
I have some questions.
Yeah.
Are the designs for these units family-friendly designs as we had looked at as preferred?
Yes, they are. The applicant has been working very closely with Arnold Mammarella, who is our design consultant. He's the same gentleman who was here at your last meeting when you adopted the family-friendly design guidelines. He's been very closely involved in the development of the design guidelines, so he's very familiar with them. He's had numerous multi-hour meetings with the development team on the design of their units. I would note that a few of the units he was not 100% satisfied with, and the Commission did include at staff's recommendation a condition that they continue to work with us and him until we're happy that those units do in fact totally comply with the family-friendly design guidelines.
I have a question. Are we going to have an opportunity to know how that's resolved and when it's resolved, whether those units are going to comport with our guidelines?
Well, I can certainly report back to you. I mean, we're just talking about little details about where the dining room table is placed and things like that. But I can certainly report back after we've done that.
But
Are there any other questions?
So are we going to be asked to vote on the 66 units of housing and the entire project at a future date?
No, this is a final development plan. The final decision is by the City Council, by the Planning Commission, unless it's appealed to the City Council.
Okay.
The way a PUD works, as a planned unit development, is the City Council approves the overall plan for the site, which in this case was done back in 2008, and then the Planning Commission makes the decision on the individual buildings.
Unless it's appealed.
Unless it's appealed.
It doesn't come up here.
Is there public comment on this item? On this item?
I have paid very close attention to the family-friendly design guidelines that you all passed. The Planning Commission also passed them. And I've paid close attention to the public marketplace development. And I'm here to say there's no way any reasonable person could conclude that that project comports with the family-friendly design guidelines. With specificity, Mr. Bryant, to typical unit plans, bedrooms, and how bedrooms are accessible to the common space within a living unit. The problem with this project is virtually every apartment or condominium, I guess they're apartments, virtually every one falls under the rubric of unacceptable according to the family-friendly design guidelines. And the reason why it's unacceptable is because the bedrooms enter onto the living rooms and the dining rooms and the kitchens, and that is expressly verboten according to the family-friendly design guidelines. The guidelines are very clear about that. As a matter of fact, they show typical acceptable floor plans and unacceptable. And what is unacceptable is that condition where the bedrooms open up onto the living spaces, like the living rooms and the dining rooms. So this development project, the public market, is chock-a-block with bedrooms that open onto living spaces. So I'm not making this up. There are some units that do comport and do have bedrooms that are off of hallways, which is what they're supposed to do. And those are called in the public market development project, those are called the townhouses. All the other ones, matter of fact, virtually none of the other ones comport with the guidelines with vis-a-vis this specific problem. So I would like to have Mr. Bryant address that. And I don't see how we can say yes to these guidelines and then right away say yes to this project, which turns the guidelines on their head. I think if we're going to let this project, the public market project, go through, we have to suspend the guidelines at least until the project goes through, and then maybe we could vote to have them become the law in the city again. But as I say, there's no way any reasonable person can look at the design guidelines that you passed and then look at the public market project and say that those two documents comport with each other. Just no reasonable person could say that. Thank you.
Any other public comment on this? This isn't an action item, it's for information.
Could we ask some more questions, like what Mr. Donahue just said? Is that true? Is it true that the vast majority do not comport with the family-friendly preferred?
No, that is not true. There have been multiple study sessions on the Marketplace project, and there are multiple buildings in the Marketplace project. There are 2 other residential proposed buildings that haven't been approved yet, and there's this one. I believe what Mr. Donahue is probably referring to is one or more of the other buildings, and probably some of the previous plans that were shown at the study sessions. I don't believe he was at the public hearing where the Planning Commission approved this.
Be careful here.
I may be misremembering, I don't know. But at any rate, our consultant showed floor plans, overhead, and walked the Planning Commission through the design, and the Planning Commission was satisfied that they generally complied with the design guidelines, with the exception of the ones that they wanted a little more tweaking of. But they were satisfied with our design consultant's analysis.
Okay.
Any other department heads?
Yeah.
Pedro. Hi, Pedro.
Good evening. I just wanted to announce that we do have some location changes due to the senior center remodel. The senior center programs, most of them will be held at the rec center. Some will be held at Ralph Hawley multi-purpose room, a lot of the exercise classes. And the summer camp program will be held at the Santa Fe school location for this summer. So we're going to be updating some flyers and information out there and putting it out for the public and parents for those. Also, wanted to announce that we do have our summer concert series starting with the 4th of July on Saturday, 4th of July at 4:30 at the Marina Park. So thank you.
Great. Thanks. You have something, Karen?
Yes, I do. As you may remember, that Planning Commission interviews are scheduled for June 16th. And we had thought that there's 3 seats now available. They're the 2 incumbents, Kerry Tan and Sean Moss, whose terms in the end of June, as well as an unscheduled vacancy because Vanessa Coomerly has resigned. So we did kind of combine those 3 together since they came on the heels of each other, and applications were due today. However, just yesterday, after first indicating that she was interested in being reappointed, Kyrie Tan is not interested in being reappointed to the Planning Commission. And so we kind of now there may have been people who did not apply, believing that there were 2 incumbents and 1 open seat, as opposed to now essentially there's 1 incumbent and 2 open seats. To date, we've only received 3 applications, and staff believes that just in the interest of now telling people that who might have held back, that we'd like to do like a special e-news, and as well any council or anyone out there to encourage them to apply by extending the application date to kind of within a couple of days of that council meeting. I think I doubt we're going to get 10 people. If so, we can make adjustments for that interview schedule. But I just wanted to ask council if you agree, if that was something that you thought that staff should do, is to extend the time period given.
Yeah, I think so. If people want it more, we should give every opportunity to apply.
And do we remind people who had applied before and then were not chosen?
Yes, there was one person last time who actually did not come to their interview, but we did reach out to that person, and they are interested. They're still interested. So that is the one of the 3 that we've received.
Okay.
And then we had one new applicant, and then Sean Moss has submitted his application. So that's the 3.
Okay, thank you.
And yes,
I have one more. In light of the passage of your minimum wage ordinance tonight and the very quick implementation that we're going to do to make it effective July 2nd, I just wanted to let you know, and for the public, we are going to have 2 information sessions. The first is on June 24th at 7 o'clock here in City Hall. We will have childcare and light refreshments, and we're also looking at having translators there. And then we'll have a second one on July 11th at 11 a.m. again here in City Hall with childcare, and we'll be posting all of this on our website. The packages will go out to all the business owners next week with the posters to put in their workplace and to provide to their employees in several different languages. And all of this is going up on our website tomorrow, along with a hotline and a dedicated email address, which is minwage@emeryville.org, if anybody has questions on it.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other department heads? Council members? I just want to say, in addition to the Planning Commission, we need a representative on the County Commission on Aging. This would be a resident in town who wants to be involved in communicating between the County Commission and our commission about senior issues, administration of Older Americans Act monies in the local community, and I want to put out the pitch there to let me know, because we need to make that appointment. It's been vacant for quite some time, and we have an unscheduled vacancy in the Housing Committee here in town too. So just for anybody who's watching or watches rebroadcasts of this, please consider getting involved civically. It's very rewarding, and we'd like to see as full participation as possible. With that, I'm going to adjourn the City Council meeting. However, we're going to go back into closed session because we're not quite done with our business. So City Council is adjourned, and we will once again recess into closed session.